Hello and welcome to Digital Learning Day 2020. My name is Corinne Kelly and I'm an educational consultant with SOIDA, which is one of the ed techs in the state of Ohio that's putting on this virtual conference. If you haven't already gone to ohioedtechs.org, you'll want to head there for links to our live Q&A document. And then there'll also be a link within there to this presentation I'm using today. The shortened link's up here, but you can also get that from that Q&A document. But if you want to go ahead and jump into the doc while I'm talking now, the shortened link is bit.ly/DLD, those are capitals, DLD, devices. Today I'm going to be talking about decoding devices, and we're focusing on three devices for the day. So we'll take a look at a couple of those and kind of break down what these different devices do. A little bit about me. Like I said, my name is Corinne Kelly. You can contact me later after the program if you need to at corinne@soida.org. I'm a former middle school teacher and librarian. I am an educational consultant at SOIDA, like I mentioned, and I love this kind of stuff. I love these devices. I'm a Raspberry Pi certified educator, so I'm really passionate and excited about using the Raspberry Pi. We're going to be looking at a microbit today as well, and I also love that device. So I spend a lot of time playing with electricity and trying to make fun things happen and work on some code and things like that with these devices. So just to get started, one of the questions that I get a lot in my work is, there are so many different devices out there. Are they all basically the same? Can I just pick one and, I won't be any better or worse off than if I pick something else? Not really. So there's a lot of devices out there. Some of them are similar, but they all have their unique features and their pros and cons to them. So in general, the devices like the ones I'm looking at today break down into two specific groups. You've got your microcomputers. The microcomputer has an interface you can access by plugging it into a monitor of some kind. You can even use a television. It doesn't have to be a computer monitor. Sometimes those television monitors are even more affordable. But it is a full-fledged little computer. You're going to be able to surf the internet. You're going to be able to check your email, and you're going to be able to do some other cool stuff too, especially in the case of the Raspberry Pi. The other group would be the microcontrollers, and a microcontroller has no interface. You're not running an operating system. You're going to write a program on a computer. You're going to plug your microcontroller, whether it's a BBC microbit or an Arduino Uno or anything like that, in. You're going to load the code onto your board, and it's going to run that code. It can only run one set of code at a time, one program at a time, but you can reprogram it as many times as you want, okay? So let's talk a little bit about these devices. We're going to start by talking about the Raspberry Pi. There's a lot of buzz about the Raspberry Pi, a lot of excitement about it, but there's also a lot of questions. So this is just kind of looking at the Pi itself, and I'm going to put it under my dock cam too, so you can kind of see it a little bit more. Here in a moment, I'll hop down there so you can see a real one. You've got your GPIO pins here. Those are your general purpose input output pins. That's going to allow you to connect other electronic components. It's going to allow you to utilize breadboards. It also lets you put on what they call HATs, which stands for hardware attached on top, to add more functionality to the Raspberry Pi. This is a 3B+, so it's got a couple USB ports. It's got an actually this is a 4 here on the screen. Now that I'm looking at the 3B+ that I'm going to show you has an HDMI port to connect. You've got some USB ports, and you have a little micro charging port here as well. Room for a camera, room for audio, all kinds of great stuff. The interface is going to, or the operating system is going to run off of a micro SD card that you're going to need, and that is inserted underneath. Pro tip, don't leave your SD card in there. They're really sensitive, so if you are using a Raspberry Pi, I recommend getting a case for your micro SD cards and storing them in a case so they don't get messed up and you lose all your stuff, right? Now, We hear a lot about the Raspberry Pi being this really affordable $35 computer, and that's true. This right here that you're looking at is $35, but I want to make sure that you know that if you just buy this, you're not going to be able to do anything to start, okay? So there's some other things you're going to need to get your Raspberry Pi up and running, okay? Now, right now, there's two different models of the Pi. There's lots of models out there, actually, because they've gone through several iterations. But there's two different models of the Raspberry Pi that you can look at. There's the 4 versus the 3B Plus. So the 3B Plus is what I have. The 4 is the newest model. They have a lot of similarities, but some differences visually, how they have organized them, and what we're looking at here. So the 3B Plus that I have has 1 gig of RAM, standard. There's no expansion on that, okay? It has one HDMI port. That's what you're going to use to connect your monitor. If you don't have an HDMI monitor, you can get a VGA to HDMI adapter and do that, okay? So don't let that stop you. It has a 5-volt, 2.5 amp micro USB connector. That's for your charging. This is pretty standard, so a lot of you probably already have something else that charges off of this amount of power, maybe a cell phone or something like that, that you can use for your Raspberry Pi. So you may not have to go out and buy an additional power cord, although I am going to show you the one I have that I really like in a minute when I go underneath our dot cam. And it's going to run Scratch too. Now there's a little asterisk here, okay? When you get into the operating system, Raspbian, on the Raspberry Pi, you're going to see Scratch 2 on there, and you're also going to see Scratch 3 on there if you're running the newest version of the operating system, which we would recommend. Even though your 3B Plus is showing Scratch 3 on there, it's not going to perform well. It may open, but it's not going to perform very well, so just keep that in mind. You're going to be running Scratch 2 on the 3B Plus. Now, the Raspberry Pi 4 has got improved, faster, just better hardware, okay? More RAM, optional. So you can still get 1 gig, but if you buy additional RAM, you'll be able to run Scratch 3. Now, if you get a 4 with just 1 gig of RAM, Scratch 2 is still going to be the way to go, even if you have a 4. You need that additional RAM to run Scratch 3, so at least 2 gigs of RAM to run Scratch 3. But if you're looking for something to use as really more as a desktop computer, I would definitely recommend the Raspberry Pi 4. If you're just wanting to get into physical computing, you already have some 3B Pluses. Those are great. You don't need to upgrade. They still work great, okay? Some other things you're going to need to get started with the Raspberry Pi. You'll need the Pi itself. You'll need a power supply. You can purchase those specifically for the Raspberry Pi, but like I said, a lot of you probably have a perfectly appropriate power source that you could use for this. You're going to need a micro SD card of at least 8 gigs. If you're going to have a lot of people using this Raspberry Pi, this SD card, or if you're going to be doing some really extensive programming, you might want a larger card. Okay, that's totally up to you. You'll need a USB keyboard and mouse. There are USB keyboard or USB ports on your Pi, but you'll need those to attach. Remember, it's a computer, so we're going to need some way to interact with the operating system. And then you'll need a TV or computer screen, an HDMI adapter or an HDMI plug for the 3B Plus, and then the 4 has micro HDMI. Okay. And like I said earlier, you can always get an adapter. So that's not a huge hurdle for us, okay? So we can always get an adapter to the correct plug that we need. Some optional additional items. Some people like to put their Pi in a case. If you're using it for a personal computer, great, put it in the case, absolutely. If you're using it for physical computing, just find something that you can keep it in that's going to still be easy to access. You want to access those GPIO pins and all of that fun stuff. I would recommend getting some backup SD cards. Like I mentioned, they're very sensitive. They can easily get damaged. And for that same reason, I'd recommend an SD card case. You can get these really cheap on Amazon. They don't have to be anything fancy, but they'll hold your SD cards there. Headphones, or something else you might want to utilize if you're dealing with audio. And you can also use an Ethernet cable if you want to have this hardwired. But the 4, 3, and the ZW models can all connect wirelessly to the internet. Okay. You will have some steps to get started with the Raspberry Pi. You'll need to format your SD card. You'll need to download either Raspbian, which is just the operating system, or Noobs, which is something that makes it really easy to install the operating system, especially if that is something you've not done before. You'll have to transfer those files to your SD card, put the card into your Pi, and then turn on your Pi, and then install those files onto it. So this isn't really a plug-and-play thing. It's all absolutely worth it. Very versatile, powerful device. Really opens up a whole world of possibilities to you and your students. But there is a little legwork to it. Connect to Wi-Fi, check for updates, and then you're ready to go. And there's some great tutorials here. So if you are following along in my presentation here, this will take you to the step-by-step tutorial on how to do that. So if you already have your Pi and you're wondering what to do next, there you go. Okay, and I've linked a bunch of other resources in here as well. Projects, online classes. If we have some time, I'll show you a couple things there. And also some beginner guidebooks, some PDFs, and links to Pi Academy North America for 2020. Those of you that might be interested, applications will be accepted for a little bit longer. Okay? And that's a really great opportunity if you're looking for some training. Oh, so if you are looking to get contact hours for this session, you'll need to head over to the ohioedtext.org website and go to the Digital Learning Day page. There will be a link and information there on how to get credit for this session to get a certificate. This is the code you're going to need. DEVE8, okay? DEV devices, E8, all right? Okay, I'll leave it up for a second. Everybody got it? Okay, let's keep going. All right, so another device that we have that's floating around a lot is a BBC Microbit. This is a truly affordable plug-and-play kind of device. So like I said, the Raspberry Pi is super powerful, has a lot of opportunity for expansion and programming. It is a microcomputer, so you can have multiple programs on it at once. More powerful device. If you're looking for something that's a little more simple, you don't want to have to get together a bunch of hardware, you just want to plug it in and load a program on it, this is a great option right here, BBC Microbit. You're going to have buttons integrated, physical buttons. That's something you have to add to the Pi. 25 LED lights. There is a Sense hat you can add to the Pi to get those LED lights. If you're like, I have a Raspberry Pi, but that's cool. Sense hat. Google it. Okay. USB connectors. And then it has a bunch of other stuff too. So it does still have edge connectors. You can add accessories to it. There's the ability to add a breadboard onto this, just like the Pi if you're looking to do some physical computing. But some cool things. There's an accelerometer integrated, compass, a processor, radio, Bluetooth. There's a battery socket. If you get the BBC Microbit Go, I think it is. It's just a couple dollars more. It comes with the battery pack. So you can take that mobile, turn it into a wearable device, all kinds of stuff. So there's that. This is a microcontroller. Okay, so it's only going to run one program at a time. Another one that a lot of you have probably heard of that's also a microcontroller is the Arduino Uno. You're going to have the ability to use pins, breadboards. There's lots of expansions for this one as well. But this one, like the Microbit, is going to just run that one program at a time. Okay. All right. So I have a Microbit and I have a Pi here for you to look at. I'm going to show those to you really quickly. And then we'll talk about what you need to get started with the Microbit as well. And we'll look at a couple things. So this is the Raspberry Pi. You can kind of tell just by looking at this is the more powerful device because it's a computer. Okay. This is where we would put in our micro SD card. I've got my GPIO pins. All right here you've got 3-volt pins and things like that. I said I was going to show you my power cord. This is a great idea. If you're going to purchase power cords, they make these great ones with an on-off switch. So nice, okay? You definitely want to do that if you're going to buy one. Another thing I would definitely recommend when you get started with physical computing, opening a bag, if you're hearing all that awesome rustling on my mic, sorry. This is your header board here for your GPIO pins. So you can see you've got 3 volt, 5 volt, your grounding, and then all your additional pins are there, okay? Now this is the microbit. Literally all you need to get started with the microbit, I'll come back to that in a minute, a computer and this. It's all you need. If you're looking for something simple to get started, this is a great, great option, okay? Let me put him back under here. You can see you have 2 physical buttons on here, and then each of these little dashes is an LED, all right? So, like I said, if you're looking for a full-fledged computer, something super powerful, something that can run multiple programs, the Raspberry Pi is the way to go. If you're looking for something that is more compact, plug and play, you want to check out the microbit. I've added a slide in here that's got a bunch of resources. Microbit.org has got obviously great resources for the microbit. The Raspberry Pi also has projects for the microbit. Some nice ideas there. Scratch has an add-on blocks specifically for the microbit that make it really easy to code, especially those LEDs. I have the, I mentioned the silicone kitten sleeve if you need to cute up your microbit and protect it. It makes it look like a little kitty cat. And then SparkFun has some great tutorials as well. Now, if you're like, this is a great idea, I'd love to get started, but I don't have a microbit yet. If you check out this Make Code Editor, it's microbit.org, and then I just clicked on code. The Make Code Editor actually has an emulator on there, so you can see it light up and do a couple different things. If you want to get started, there's great tutorials on here as well. If you're looking at this and you're like, is this going to be okay for my older kids? We want to transition to a full programming language. You can also code the microbit with Python and Java, okay? Now the Raspberry Pi, you're going to want to probably use Thani, which is their version of Python, but there's also Java and other languages integrated in there as well, okay? All right. That was a really fast 20 minutes. Like I mentioned before, if you'd like to contact me later on, my email is Corinne, C-A-R-Y-N, @soida.org. I'd love to talk to you about the Pi and the microbit, anything like that. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you're going to stick around for our next session. Bye.